Hello everyone, thank you so much for coming. My name is Grid-Arendal. I am a long-time member of Engineers Without Borders. I'm also the proprietor of a tiny little company, and I work full-time with these kinds of issues, where we travel around the world and try to find sensible systems for plastic waste management. I have been lucky enough to be part of the organising group here, part of the initiative, and we are super proud to, a little pat on the back to ourselves for having all of these lovely faces looking at me this morning. So thank you so much for coming. It's really, really nice to see stepping up from last year, having not only these hands-on what the hell are we doing on the ground kind of project, idea sharing things we had last year, but today we also have people from those on the ground projects in combination with those who work on more the political and regulatory level. So we have the whole spectrum. I feel like this is a stand-up thing. Looks like it. I even got my drink on the chair. But I have no jokes, unfortunately. So, we're running a bit late. I will take responsibility for that. That's fine. I've done that my whole life. So we are welcome to the seminar part of today. Thanks for attending the breakfast meeting. It's very lovely seeing you all there as well. So we are here because we want you guys to know what each other are doing. That's why you're here. So you can hopefully make some new friends, come up with some new project ideas. Maybe someone who has a bunch of money wants to find someone that needs a bunch of money, etc. We just want stuff to happen, and this is a great arena to do that. So this is an effort to sort of build that network of people here in Norway and abroad that are working with trying to kill this plastic pollution problem dead. So today we are going to start off with the big picture, as we call it, more like regulatory, political part of the tackling the issue. That's the first thing we're going to be doing. At the end of that, there's going to be a quick summary, a Q&A, so people get to ask questions, and of course using the breaks and stuff to ask more questions. And then dinner tonight, of course, to ask a bunch of questions. And then the drink after to ask the questions you didn't really have the guts to ask earlier. Yeah? Questions. So, then I'm guessing we're going to have a little break. All the presentations here are quick fire, 10 minutes, so we get a brief introduction to what people are doing. And then we're going to go on the ground, and we are going to have a look at some projects that I personally am familiar with. And then we're going to have lunch, because you can read. See that it says right there. And after that, we're going to have another presentation from Jan from Precious Plastic. That's going to kick us off into the case study that we're going to have after, which is going to be it's going to be low-key, it's going to be informal. We're going to be presenting you with a case of an issue with plastic pollution somewhere, and we are going to put you into groups, very randomly ordered, and we're going to try and see what kind of solutions you come up with. It's going to be fun. And so after that, it's dinner time, and then, I'm going to take tomorrow off. Don't know about you, but... So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. There's one thing, though, very important. I will be timing every single lecture, and I will hold you to your 10 minutes, because we have a lot of stuff that we are going to go through, and I'm going to have to bring out my time fascist on that sort of aspect. So please keep to your 10 minutes. And I know for many of you it sounds scary to hear your voice over the PA system, but this is how you use a microphone. None of this. Because you can't really hear what I'm saying then, can you? Or maybe? No. Not really. Yeah. So don't... Rule of thumb, just Keep it on your chin. Rest it right there. Yeah? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Woo! So, to kick us off, we're lucky enough to have Tora Toreng with us here today. And take it away, Tora. Woo!
Thanks a lot. Time myself as well.
Oh, good stuff. Champion.
A clicker. Thank you. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tora, and I work in the plastics team in WWF. You may wonder why we are up here again talking from WWF, but we really wanted to use the opportunity to get suggestions and ideas from you here today. Carolina has presented some of the work that we do, but I'm going to talk more about the challenges that we face, and that's what we hope to get input from you on later. I'm here with my colleague Ida, who's sitting back there, and we're very excited to be here. So we work with plastics under the name No Plastic in Nature. I'm going to start by just showing you how we've designed our work, and then I'm going to talk about what we do in the cities. So we recognize that this is a massive problem that we need to address, as I'm sure you all do as well, and it needs a comprehensive approach. So we've divided our work into 3 different pillars. One is to work with the corporate sector, including developing EPR schemes in selected countries. The other is the global policy work that Carolina was talking about this morning to make sure that the global treaty becomes legally binding. That's our main goal. And then the third pillar is to work with what we call plastic smart cities. And that's really to address the problem on the local level. And we focus on the region with the highest level of plastic pollution in Southeast Asia. So I work on the Ocean of Possibilities project in Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, and the Philippines, where we work in 9 different cities. And why do we work with the cities? Of course, it's where a massive amount of the pollution is. We've designed this model called Plastic Smart Cities to help them guide their way to address their waste management problem. So we've decided to address the whole chain, not just plastic, but to look at how can the waste management improve. So we were asked to talk about how we work with the regulatory frames. And we see that the cities actually are struggling a lot because they work in this regulatory vacuum, both on the international level, national and local level. And that both makes it difficult to maneuver. What options do we have? How do we address the pollution problem? And it can also be used as a good excuse to do nothing. But in the Plastic Smart Cities model, we work to get commitments from the municipalities to create a framework to address the plastic pollution. So the first thing that they do is that the mayors sign a declaration of intent. And in this declaration, they sign on to doing baseline studies for the waste composition of the city. And based on that, we help them select good interventions to address the biggest pollution sources in an action plan, the city action plan. And that needs to be approved by the municipality. So once that's done, the WWF teams, they work to ensure that this is followed by budget allocations. So right now we have a best case in Bogor in Indonesia, where the mayor signed the declaration, we've done the baselines, they've approved the action plan, And for 2023, the mayor and the municipality has also committed funds to some of these interventions that are in the action plan. They're going to give land to develop a recycling facility and also help fund it together with the WWF office. So that's part of becoming a plastic smart city and sort of creating some frames how we can address this. We do this because it's a big need to improve the waste management systems in these cities, but also because we believe that by working in pilot cities, we can identify some key measures that can work elsewhere. So Carolina mentioned this morning that we have lots of good small initiatives. For example, waste segregation in neighborhoods, social enterprises, recycling low-value plastics. But to find the big solutions, the ones that can be scaled up, is also part of our work, and that's one of the challenges I'm going to come back to. So this is how we work on the city level. And another question we were supposed to answer was, is this leading to a reduction in plastic pollution? Our goal is to reduce pollution by 30% by 2025. Some of the cities we work in include Jakarta and Manila, so this is extremely ambitious. And in this gray box, you see the goals that the project is addressing. But the short answer is that we don't know yet. It's too early, but we hope to come back next year and give a good answer to this, including how the action plans in the cities are working. That's something that we're very interested in. Are the cities actually willing to follow up on what they have committed to? What is the ownership, and how we manage to secure that? So I mentioned that I really wanted your input today, and I therefore wanted to share our main challenges. I'm not going to go into all of these, but I wanted to mention, maybe I'll start with the political buy-in, because we see that the mayors are really crucial in making anything happen, but they also disappear every 4 years. So how can we work to build lasting relationships with the local bureaucracy that sort of reduces the dependency on the mayor? We also see that everybody wants to reduce plastic pollution visually in their cities, but they're not really that interested in investing in lasting circular waste management solutions. And how do we get them to do that? That's definitely a challenge. And it was also mentioned about the waste to energy trend that we're also struggling with. In WWF, we have a guideline that we are supposed to avoid all types of incineration, and that's obviously quite the challenge within this field. The second one I wanted to touch upon is financing, because this links to the idea of finding the big solutions that work, that can really help us reach 30% reduction. We have the small solutions. They're working fine, and we have financing for them. And then we also see that there is financing available for the really large-scale initiatives, but we don't have the large-scale initiatives. So how do we help the small ones either join forces to access more funding, or how do we find new large solutions that can access this funding? This is something that we struggle with a lot, really, how to get to the higher level. Yes, so I hope that some of you have solutions to this. And I think I'm going to end there. Thank you.
Hello again. Some people have some questions, burning questions. We are gonna, if you have the, yeah, look at that, nice, thank you. You can have this back then. We're gonna do like a Q&A at the end of this particular segment. So if you have questions for Tora, write them down and we'll do that. We'll get all the speakers up here and we'll do a Q&A and you can ask your questions then. So yeah, good question about questions. Yeah, so you couldn't be here today, was that it? Yeah. Yeah, he fell ill yesterday, unfortunately. So we are getting to Malin from SALT to talk about the initiatives that they have. Woo!
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you so much, and good morning, or yeah, it's still morning, right? My name is Malin Jacob, and I work in the marine consultancy company called SALT. And we have been working for quite some time on marine litter from the marine sectors, from the fisheries, from the aquaculture. And now we've taken our knowledge outside of our borders and hopefully been able to do some knowledge exchange from Norway to the Manor region and hopefully back again. So let's see. I've chosen to start with this photo because it tells us a bit about the region we're in. The Manor region is the ocean space between Sri Lanka and India. And if you see it on a map, or it's even better if you look at a satellite map, but the area between Sri Lanka and India, it looks like a sandbank or a sand bridge. You could almost think you could walk from India to Sri Lanka without taking off your shoes, which is not the case. But it's an area with a lot of sand which accumulates marine litter. So the Manor Gulf, and it's a very important both economical area for both India and Sri Lanka because it's huge fisheries in this area. But of course it's also very important for the local communities living from or depending on the marine resources in this area. However, it's also an area with huge accumulation of marine litter. So, this is a project partnership or a partnership program. It's funded by the Norwegian Retailers Environmental Fund. I can see that Marie-Kristin is here. And I think one of the most important things when you're working abroad is that you have a rooted project within the local communities. So we're working together with the Lanka Environmental Fund, the IUCN, and SDMRI in India. So SALT is having the project management to some extent, but most of the work is done by our local partners. This is a cross-disciplinary partnership that contains research, awareness building, and of course policy advisory aspects. The knowledge, we've been working or been researching a lot in Norway on marine litter from aquaculture and fisheries in Norway. And now the sampling and the research going on in this project is done by our local partners. And we were asked to give some examples of the challenges we have been facing And of course, I guess for most of you, the COVID-19 has been a huge challenge. It's really hard to do field work when you can't be close to each other. It's hard to visit each other. But also, one of the challenges that we face doing research and science is that you actually do need power. You will sometimes there's a power outage and you need internet. So that has been challenging for us, is having a good connection with our partners. But now, finally, we've been able to visit our partners maybe about a year or half year in delay. So the knowledge from our scientific knowledge go into system change. Hopefully we can do some policy recommendations and further on sustainable development. So why focus on marine litter? From fisheries. We know from Norway it's a huge contributor to marine litter. And we know this is also the case in India and Sri Lanka. But what we have understood visiting, especially India, is that there's a lot of focus on marine litter in these regions as well, but we haven't looked at it sector-wise at the same way we've done in Norway. So looking at the fisheries sector itself has been an eye-opener, I think, for several of us. And of course, we need to have a regional program. We need to tackle this from several countries. Marine litter is not stopped at customs, and we need to work coordinated towards long-term solutions. So our data, we will present a report in January, but what we have seen from our data until now is that about 50% of the waste found on the beaches in, this is India, is related to fisheries. And we can probably say or expect that a large share is also on the ocean floor and on the surface. And we can see the same in Sri Lanka, that there is a significant portion from the fisheries. So we've also done a survey with fishers, 343 respondents, saying that it's actually one of the same reasons for loss that we have in Norway, that it's sweeping the ocean floor, losing trawl nets and losing gill nets. And it's gill nets that's most frequently lost. All respondents responded that there is a lack of designated disposal sites, but they are highly interested to contribute to solving this problem if there is a system in place. So what we've done until now is having these partnership meetings. We had one in India last month and one in January this year. We've had numerous stakeholder meetings with the fishers, with government officials, with the producers of nets. We've done research activities, sampling data, collecting data. I think that's the most time-consuming work. We've done a fishing gear inflow study, a fishing fleet descriptive study, and then this survey that I mentioned. So what we will do ahead now, steps ahead, we will present the reports with the findings in January, have a stakeholder conference in January, work further with stakeholders. I think that's the key here, and hopefully we will be able to do some policy recommendations in the end of the project. These are my colleagues, Brita and Carl, working with this, and this is me. So please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marlon. That was enormous. That was just 8 minutes. Quickest yet. So we're just we're gonna push on. We already heard from Neva earlier this morning in the panel discussion. And we are gonna keep hearing from Neva and Eirik. And with his special guest, Girja, are gonna talk a little bit about their projects. Take it away and keep writing down questions because we will have time for them after.
Thank you. Yeah, we can. So good morning, everybody. My name is Eirik Steindal, researcher at NIVA, Norwegian Institute for Water Research. And I have the pleasure to have with me Dr. Girija Bhagat from India. Girija is the founder and director of Mugama Consultants. And NIVA and MGC, that's the abbreviation, we have been collaborating for more than 12 years, almost 13 years now. So we have a long-standing collaboration. And we have been working on pollution issues, mainly chemical pollution, and the last years we have been doing a lot of work on also plastic pollution. So we're going to share, since we are under the session, the big picture, we're going to share some experience from India, representing 17–80% of the world population. I would say it's part of the big picture. And we're going to talk a little bit about regulations, and then we'll also share some more concrete experiences. Just starting with one of the projects that we have been working on during the last years is the Uten project, which has been going on in the west of India, in the state of Gujarat, where we have been doing both monitoring, research on both chemical and plastic pollution, also the interlinkages of those. And we also do capacity building, technical training, and policy advice. So, and we're working together with also 4 other partners, which are representing both civil society, research institute, universities, and also one government research center on polymers. So with this, I'll pass the word to Girija, who will continue with regulations.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, everyone. Greetings from India. Really nice to be invited for this forum to share our experiences. As you can see, and Eric has already set the background of the Uten project, which we have been doing, and in fact we have been doing several other projects the past so many years. But the Uten project has chemical as well as plastic pollution, and for the last few years we are emphasizing on plastics. And as you see, mismanaged plastic is a great issue worldwide, but in India, with so much of population, it's much more exponentially aggravated. Unfortunately, Indian government has woken up late, but then it is taking steady steps. And initial years like 1999, 2003, we had the recycled plastic manufacturing usage amendment rules. In 2011, we had the plastic waste management and handling rules. 2016 was a very landmark development in the plastic waste management rules, because before that they were more focused on the solid waste, but as the plastic influx started very high, and the rule became very stringent over the years. 2018 was another year where we had new developments. I'll be coming in the next few slides to discuss about that. And 2022, this year, has come up with very important 2 steps. That is, one is single-use plastic ban, and the other is extended producer responsibility. So as you see, 2016, as I was mentioning, has been very important for us, where the increase of minimum thickness of plastic carry bags from 40 to 50 microns have been used. So you might think, what is so great about increasing the size of this micron? Because these plastics can be recycled, and the ones which are lighter than that, it is the one having highest littering potential, which you see all over India, unfortunately. And it also stipulates minimum thickness of 50 microns for plastic sheets, and minimum thickness criteria not applicable for compostable carry bags. The other thing is the plastic manufacturers have to register under state pollution control boards. Earlier they were not registered, they were like doing on their own, they were putting whatever chemicals they were had handy, so it was very mismanaged. So over the years these developments have been extremely stringent. And then it requires producers and brand owners to introduce extended producer responsibilities also. So this generation, which includes individual bulk, etc. In fact, you will be surprised that the source segregation started in India quite late. Yeah, we were like all dumping it, and our landfills were like big mountains, and there was no space for the mountains. From one mountain to the other mountain, the cities were surviving like that. But over the years, there are like very good examples where they have been able to get rid of the entire mountain. Like the city called Indore, Ambikapur, they have done extremely well when they have been able to basically get rid of these mountains. And it also had this fees included for plastic waste management, which helped in sustainability of these efforts. So basically, the producer responsibility from recycling to product design to material sourcing to production to product use, product collection, recycling, and the entire cycle goes, and it's improving incrementally. And 2018, the plastic rules was basically multi-layer plastic which was included. Otherwise, multi-layer plastics like small sachets, people who are economically weaker, they were not able to afford the big shampoo bottles or the bottles which are packaged with higher better materials, they would go for multi-layer plastic packaged shampoos and other consumables. So that was a huge nuisance when it comes to India's waste management issues. So these are, I'll not go into the details because of paucity of time, but then the producers, recyclers, generators, and urban local bodies. So the buck stops there, because urban local bodies, if they don't have an infrastructure facility, then no matter how much segregation we are doing at source, it doesn't make sense. So over the years, the ULBs have been given a lot of capacity building trainings, infrastructure improvement, to see that there is segregation collection and the transportation and even waste to energy plants. In fact, when Eric had visited us, we had gone to a waste to energy plant. So these are very good initiatives which some of the ULBs, not all, very few have taken up. Yeah. Creating awareness generation and seeking assistance of producers and such systems by setting up system for plastic waste management on a holistic basis. So just to sum up, the first stage, the rules propose that each sheet of non-woven plastic carry bags shall not be less than 60 GSM grams per square meter or 240 microns in thickness from 30th September 2021, that's last year. And it also had the carry bags made of virgin or recycled plastic shall not be less than 120 microns from December 2022. So over the last 1 year, you will see so many new developments here. And in the second stage, which came from 1st of January this year, when 6 categories of single-use plastics, like they were nuisance plastic, like earbud plastic, balloon sticks, ice cream stick, etc., they have been categorically banned. So if it's not produced, then no question of littering. Then the third stage, that is 1st of July, it was very, very stringently. In fact, if we are carrying plastic bags, then there is a chance that we will be stopped. Yeah, it's that stringent. And it also included cutleries. And with packaging and online shopping increasing quite a bit in India, and these things having been banned is really, really big solace. So this is about the plastic, single-use plastic phase out. And it also had few things, as I mentioned, extended producers' responsibility, single-use plastic, recycling and reuse has been encouraged, details of recycling certificates, because many of the agencies had recycling, but they didn't have a certification. So we don't know if we are unknowingly introducing not recyclable plastic into the interstream. All this plastic waste management experts would appreciate that we have contaminated the plastic stream also to a large extent. So this certification was also extremely important, and Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board, they were very strict about these regulations. Yeah, and centralized online system, portal where there is data registry of the recycling units and others, and environmental compensations, where polluter pay principle has been implemented and it is being enforced as well. And setting up of a committee which constitutes Central Pollution Control Board and State Pollution Control Board officials to see that it is being compliance. This is basically about the same things, and the new rules classify plastics into 4 categories. One is the rigid plastic, single-use plastic, multi-layer plastics, and carry bags and compostables. Sorry if I have taken more time. Over to you. Thanks.
Okay. We have a few more minutes, I hope. So just taking a step back and up, perhaps, we wanted to share some experiences we have from other multilateral environmental agreements, other treaties. India is actually very good at ratifying new international treaties, and they do that quite quickly. 1 minute more, 2? Thanks. So the Stockholm Convention is a convention that regulates persistent organic pollutants, a group of chemicals that are both hazardous, bioaccumulative, and toxic, and they transport easily by air. And it started in 2004, and India was quickly ratifying this convention, and it was quite quickly also a few years behind schedule, but still it managed to develop a national implementation plan, which is a kind of comprehensive plan for how they're going to deal with these chemicals. But since then, it has gone quite much slower. So it was not until last year that actually India ratified 7 additional POPs. And while this is happening, this is a dynamic treaty, so new chemicals are added all the time. So India keeps kind of falling behind, and they struggle with both ratification and implementation. And India and a few other countries, China also, they have chosen to ratify this convention with an opt-in clause, and that means that most other countries, they say, okay, we ratify this convention, and then automatically changes to it we accept. But whereas India and China and a few other countries, they want to actively accept new changes to the convention, and that makes a bit more challenge when you have a dynamic treaty. And this is also relevant for the plastic treaty that is coming up that you've heard about. And also there's a big discrepancy when we are talking to the state governments. So even if the national level is really ambitious and have ideas of moving ahead, the state governments are not, these plans have not been anchored well with state governments. So there's a lot of work to do there. So I think these are things that are important to keep in mind also when we look at a plastic treaty. And of course there are many differences between plastics and POPs. And there are also many interlinkages. So I wanted to spend 1 minute on also the problem shifting and the risk of creating new environmental problems. So this is from one of our scientific papers where we looked at some of the interlinkages between the different chemicals that are regulated under the Stockholm Convention and also the different fractions of plastic waste. And not going into detail, but I'll share some experience from, we were in India 2 weeks ago, and we went around visiting different recycling sites. So this is kind of a bit of the backside of the circular economy. There's a lot of recycling ongoing in India, and this is from Delhi. And this is kind of, here you see it's pellets making. So we visited both the pellets making part, but also the sorting part. And we learned a lot of things, and I don't have time to tell you everything, but I'll tell you one thing, and that is that we were told that they have approximately 10 to 20% rejects. So that's plastic that they're not able to use. And that was on each level. We heard the same number, and this is higher than we've heard before, actually. So I think those estimates that I've seen in the literature, they are a bit too low. So we need more data on that. So that's a good thing. It's been taken care of. The bad thing is that it's used as cheap fuel for brick making, and that implies it's burned at too low temperatures. So you created new POPs, dioxins and fluorines. You may have heard of them. Some of the worst POPs we have. And that's done in residential areas. So this is in residential areas. And we asked them, why are you in residential areas? Why are you not in the industrial parks that the government has set up? And they told us, okay, well, here we have cheap energy. We have the big trucks that come into these narrow streets, and that's fine. We're not shut down by the government as long as we're not out on the street. And if we move into the industrial park, we get higher taxes, we get stricter pollution control, etc. So these are some of the challenges we are facing, and I think there is a lot of more knowledge and research needed to be done to really understand this full picture. And it's huge. We visited one of the biggest sites in Asia, and it's huge. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Adam. You can stay up here.
Yeah.
It's very good to see your personal commitment to this. Very, very keen on this. So thank you so much for that. Sorry to have to cut you off, mate, but yeah, we have to try and stay on track. So we're going to do the Q&A. Hooray! So I hope you have all been writing down the questions that you have for our presenters. So Marlon and Tora, if you could please join me back on stage. Should have had some elevator music. So we can just fire away. Who's got a question? I know Tora Martin had one. And then I'm just going right there.
I had a question for Tora. I had a question for Tora. You mentioned that the objective was 25% reduction. Do you know what is the objective in Norway, Norwegian cities? Is it comparative to, yeah?
Well, so this is an aim that we have in the WWF network. And we don't work the same way with the Plastic Smart Cities in Norway. Here we have a network where it's more learning and sharing network. So we don't have an aim specifically for cities here, but overall for our work on plastic, it's a 30% reduction by 2025. And then, of course, that's something that we link to where we are implementing directly. But we hope that anyone who is part of the Plastic Smart Cities project would also have that as their goal.
Good. Yeah, you can just speak up. I'll try and repeat.
Francisco Chavez. I just have a quick question. Different than the breakfast this morning, I was focusing on the small. This is big. This is for regulatory. We're talking big thing. Could it be an option? I don't know that follow the same approach as it was followed with the CO2. At the beginning, CO2 you had to use, so it had to be some regulatory forces that push in order to start doing something. And in an attempt to make that something, it came the CO2 certificates. Will it be an option to start some plastic certificates or something like that? Could it be possible? Does the market compare each other enough as for having such approach, for example?
So to summarize quickly, if someone didn't hear, so Francisco's asking whether there could be, if it's possible to have a similar approach to plastics as one has had to CO2 with certificates and taxations, etc., if I'm understanding correctly. Who wants to grab that?
Go. I don't have too much experience with the climate issue and the climate treaty, but I have been a former negotiator for Norway on treaty, setting up treaties. And we were following also closely. NIVA is working closely, feeding into the new plastic treaty development, and I know this is part of the discussion, making sustainability standards, and both globally and also as part of the national action plans, and also certification schemes. So it's part of the discussion. I think there is a lot more work to be done, and there are a few examples, I think, also from the EU. But I think, knowing the Indian perspective, I think there's a long way to go, and it's also There has been tried to make transparency schemes also from other sector, gold mining, for instance, and it's tricky. And with plastic sector, it's we see like these are huge markets with plastic being mixed and sorted and mixed at so many different segments and levels. So yeah, so I see challenges, but I know that there's work done that was kind of.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I've been working on climate before I started working on plastics, and I can see very similarities on how we work on plastics now and what we did on climate in 2009 in the Copenhagen negotiations. And I think what we've gotten now with the zero vision is kind of the Paris Agreement or the 1.5 goal, and then we now have to find the Paris Agreement for plastics. And I think one of the solutions is actually certificates. But I think maybe the polluter pays or the producer responsibilities will be a huge regulatory work towards this agreement that we probably will see in a few years' time.
In the CO2 case, the UN came in to push the government, because here I can see that there is efforts from individual governments. Perhaps Europe, in the European Union, could be one bigger, but would it be needed a UN type of approach in order to push everybody forward?
Yeah, and I guess that's where we're going now with the international a treaty, on plastic that probably will be done in 2024, start 2024. Yeah.
Everyone up front, the microphone reach.
Hello, my name is Line Blytt. I'm working in Norway, and we have some small projects now in Bali, just helping 4 villages in the Pansar to be more efficient when it comes to the recycling. And we have these small recycling stations where they compost and they sort organic and also unloading the residues for landfill. What you have seen in these 5 plants, they have a lot of equipment, and they got a lot of equipment from the government, from the beneficiaries, and all the kind of charity. And of course, they are filling up the small plot with equipment that are not in use. And we told them that you need to get rid of them. They're not working. They are not using it. Now they are holy because we have got them and we cannot remove them from the site. So that's why if there are any kind of to kind of use, because the villages have very limited space, they don't own that much land. So when they have a land, it has to be utilized and designed for waste handling, and it's not. It is designed by others that doesn't know how to treat the waste and be more efficient, so it can handle more waste into these small facilities. So I think going into design and thinking how to be efficient when it comes to waste handling within the plot is very crucial, and I think the Ingeniører Uten Grenser have a lot to do there.
Yes, we do. That's a very pertinent comment right there. So I think that's something we have to do when projects choose to go that way, to fund local initiatives like that. I do think that's what I do for a living, to try and adapt those technical solutions to the local context and make them work, because there are a lot of machines out there that aren't being used for sure. Sorry, go.
Thank you. In fact, developing country perspective and the developed country perspective is quite different. Yeah, and developing countries, even if it is not functional, they would like to hoard it. Yeah, the feeling of hoarding is there. Maybe someday it will be of use. That kind of a feeling. They think about the material, the cost which they had incurred while purchasing it. So even if it is not going to be used ever, but still they have this mentality of hoarding it. So that has to be probably taken up at the higher level, not at the village level, maybe at the government level, where it can be uniformly implemented throughout the country, rather than taking it to local levels, because you may be able to fix it. It's like a quick fix for a small area, but then overall this would be, I'm sure, happening everywhere in most of these Asian countries. Yeah. Thank you. Hope it makes sense.
That's a very good perspective right there. Question at the back.
Hi, my name is Ida from WWF. I have a question to Niva. The last point about recycling or energy to waste factory. I was wondering, I understood that a lot of the emissions were increasing due to the wind system. I was wondering if there's some local discussion about the disadvantages and incentives to continue more environmentally friendly way.
So just to repeat, correct me when I'm wrong. So you have a question to Niva about incineration of general waste, or plastic waste in particular? Plastic waste, and if you have any comments on the environmental friendliness of that process.
Yeah, and especially if there was a local discussion, as well, or if it was only something that you saw.
Okay, yeah, so if that discussion was also being held locally where the incineration was going to take place. Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you. Good questions. And yes, there is awareness among the government. So open burning, for instance, is banned most places, I think, in India.
Yes.
And also this firing up these brick makers. These are small furnaces. So we're not talking about these big incinerations. In India, like Delhi, has an incinerator at the Ghazipur, which has the European technology on air pollution abatement, for instance. But I'm talking about a different kind of segment, and it's banned and it's done. They try to do it during night, for instance. They try to do it, and it's closed down and it's moved again, but it's still happening. It's still operating. There's a lot of corruption, so you pay your way. So even all these facilities we met and we visited, they were operating illegally. So that's also bringing to the discussion, I'm sure my colleague Emmy discussed a bit this morning about formality and informality, because we talk about informality. So these businesses we met, they were registered, but they were operating illegally. So you have all these gray border zones. So yes, there is a tension, and sometimes the government closes them down. So they told us, okay, some guys had tried this on the street to make pellets. They were closed down because it's too visible and people were complaining. But as soon as they moved indoor, they could do, and again, corruption is a big thing. So I hope that was an answer too. But it doesn't mean that like things are happening. So like in government, there is a lot of will also around. So it's not useful to paint a black picture, but it's very complex and it's very. So I don't know if you want to add.
That's very correct picture which you have shared, Eric. And different states have different kinds of compliance mechanisms, and some states are very tight about these regulations, some are very lax. Yeah, and different levels in the same state also has different, like as Eric mentioned, some of the places the urban local bodies themselves would burn a plastic dump, because otherwise if it was their responsibility to transport it to a place. So it makes it very easy, and they probably might be paying the locals to burn it off or whatever, I don't know, but then it happens with the understanding of the urban local body officials. So in the night there would be a big heap, and morning it would be gone. And the gas nobody understands unless they fall sick. They don't understand that the gas is noxious and all that. Yeah. It's a very retrospective approach. The prospective planning and approach is not there, unfortunately. Yeah, I hope I answered a bit of it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. That's going to have to be our last question for this particular session right now, because we have to keep moving on. I see there's one question burning in there. If it's possible for you to take that up with some of these during the break that we're going to have now, is that okay? Okay, cool. And we do wish for everyone here to keep these discussions going after this day is over. We have a lot of stuff to go through. There are a lot of people we want to hear from. So it's a balance of, it's a question of what time we have available. But I do hope that these discussions will continue after this day is over. That's the goal, pretty much. Thank you very much, Eirik, Girja, Tora, and Malin. Give them a round. We're going to do a quick break now because people need toilets and coffee. That's just how people work. I am one of them. And so we'll be back here in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, something like that. Yeah, try and be back here in 10 minutes and then we'll be going again in 15 minutes. Is that cool? All right, hit it. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna do the same thing as we did, but we're gonna listen to a couple more lectures presentations will probably be a better term. So we have 5, that's this many. People that are gonna come up here and talk about their projects, and this is more of the, we are changing segments. So we're gonna go more on the ground with the more tangible, like technical, smaller scale kind of projects that aren't really touching the policy aspect of this issue. So, to kick it off, we have Holly from Engineers Without Borders Norway to give us some insights in what she spent her days doing.
I'll time myself as well. So I'm Holly Meisel. I work at Engineers Without Borders Norway, and I'm the project manager for the Waste for Warmth project. We use plastic waste to make insulation products for warm and safe shelters. We've primarily been targeting displaced people in a refugee setting, but we're beginning to kind of expand on that. We're a consortium project, so we work alongside Field Ready in Turkey. They're located in Gaziantep, Turkey, southern Turkey, and they're focused on small-scale manufacturing that's very localized for humanitarian response. We also work with the Polyphos Factory, which is the creator and maker of the Polyphos machine, which I'll share a little bit more about. And we have funding from Innovation Norway and the Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund. So one of the really exciting things about the Waste for Warmth project, in my opinion, is it can achieve a lot of different objectives. So we can remove waste plastic from the environment. We can create job opportunities for displaced people or in underserved communities. We can increase the warmth in shelters during winter. Which ideally would actually lead to a decrease in burning unclean heating fuels to keep those shelters warm, which in turn could lead to a reduction in respiratory illnesses, and then just overall a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by manufacturing locally, as well as just reducing fuel consumption. As I mentioned before, our partner Field Ready is located in Gaziantep, Turkey, which is close to the Syrian border. So we've spent a lot of time focused on northwest Syria, which is really a small pocket, corner in Syria that is not controlled by the Assad regime. So as such, there's a really large number of Syrians that are living in this corner of Syria. The winters there can be short, but quite harsh. The summers can also be extremely hot. Last winter, there were some pretty severe snowstorms, which is just quite miserable when you live in a tent or a sort of transitional shelter. So this you see here is a picture of the Polyphos machine. And the way the Polyphos machine works is it works with recycled, ideally, plastic that's in pellet form or shredded. You put it into the hopper up there, and it moves through this barrel where it's heated up, and it comes out as this fine plastic fiber, which we call polyfloss. And so you see some of the team in Turkey just sitting on a really large mound of this polyfloss. And polyfloss is a really good insulator, right? It traps air. A couple years ago, we did some winter testing in Oslo to really kind of understand how well it performs. We put up some common refugee tents to do the testing, and it worked pretty well. So we've been focused on trying to create insulation panels that encapsulates that polyfloss. So you can see the team here in Turkey is insulating a transitional shelter. These shelters are kind of replacing some of the tents in Syria. They're still not very warm, and they're also extraordinarily hot in the summer as well. And so we've encapsulated the polyfloss and just fully insulated this shelter to do some testing on. We also have been working on floor tiles. We've heard a lot that insulating the ground is a rather neglected area in refugee tents and shelters, and there's a real need for some solution for the floor. This tile here is not made actually with polyfloss. It's still made from recycled plastic. We just use injection molding to create the tile. An interesting thing to point out is we've always known insulating a shelter, will help reduce the indoor temperature. Well, it'll help increase the indoor temperature in the winter, but in the summer, it should actually kind of mitigate extreme heat. And so this summer, when we put up the insulation in that shelter, we actually did some temperature tracking to see how well the insulation performed in the summer heat. And I won't go into a lot of explanation, but on one day, we actually saw a 10-degree Celsius difference between a non-insulated shelter and an insulated shelter. So our insulated shelter was 10 degrees cooler on the inside than a non-insulated shelter. And when a non-insulated shelter reaches 50 degrees Celsius, it's too hot to live in. That's not a lovely condition to have to spend your time in. I recently got back from Nepal. We are taking Waste for Warmth to Nepal, and we're trying something new in Nepal. We are working with a local social enterprise. It's a group of environmental engineers primarily. They're very knowledgeable about the waste plastic ecosystem in Nepal. And so we are really letting them explore sort of product development, studying the market to understand, what can we make or use the polyfloss for that's relevant to the Nepali market. And so they're really going to take over kind of exploring that and understanding market demands. One of their ideas, and we've started having discussions with, is the Annapurna Rural Municipality. There's a lot of trekking tourism, as I'm sure most of you know, in Nepal. And so there's a lot of these villages that are pretty rural that have a lot of trekkers come through. There's a lot of water bottles that are consumed and left in the village, and it's hard to deal with that waste. And so one of the things Green Decision Labs and Research, who's our partner in Nepal, is looking at is working with these villages to figure out a system for kind of collecting that waste and getting it to the machine, the polyfloss machine, to make a product that is useful. Lastly, I just want to leave with a few challenges and opportunities for the future. We've had a lot of challenges working within the humanitarian context, and I think humanitarian contexts are focused on emergency situations. Things are rapidly happening on the ground, and it's hard when you're a sustainability project that kind of spans a number of different focuses in the humanitarian field. And so we're really now trying to maybe look at communities that do not have necessarily a war or famine going on, where there's still an issue with waste plastic. There's still products that could improve people's lives. And so we're beginning to try to explore more of this sort of long-term development context. I'll just kind of move into some of the opportunities as well. One thing that's been kind of exciting that I mentioned before is there is extreme heat in a lot of communities, and polyphos can actually reduce that. So one of the things we're looking at too is insulating school roofs in Nepal to reduce summer temperatures so that schools don't have to close down. There's also just a lot of different ways to reuse plastic for winterization or other products that again can improve people's lives. So, you know, we developed the floor tile, which is not something our project necessarily set out to use injection molding, but it's kind of where we ended up, and it can improve lives. And then lastly, there's just so many amazing companies and organizations around the world that really know their local communities and their context really well. And I think we're really interested in trying to connect with more of these to figure out how we could potentially support them in using polyphos machine or using a product we've already sort of developed. And so again, just kind of trying to take waste for warmth farther out into the world and finding those really amazing organizations and groups. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Holly. We are gonna push on. Great on the time, by the way. 50 seconds left. Well done. So yeah, we're just gonna move on. My friend Sabrina from Grid-Arendal is gonna give you a bit about the projects that we're working on.
Thank you. I think I've timed my presentation, so I'll get started really quickly. I want to introduce you to the Ripple project, which is preventing plastics in Kathmandu rivers, although we want our project to have a ripple effect within Nepal and internationally in other developing countries. It's a 3-year project. We're 9 months in already, and it's funded by the Norwegian Retailers Environment Fund, HMF. These are the projects that are taking part in the project, the partners that are taking part in the project, the Norwegian ones at the top, including ourselves, the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute, and the more international partners on the bottom. So Doku Recyclers, private waste management company in Kathmandu, as well as Creation, the Center for Research and Sustainable Development in Nepal, and International Solid Waste Association, based in the Netherlands. I'm going to just talk over this sound. The sound is not so important, but this is a video of a recent visit that we had to Kathmandu, where, we saw firsthand the plastic pollution problem there, as well as the important work that informal waste workers are doing. So the unique spin on this project is that we want to prevent plastics in rivers by strengthening the informal waste sector. Our partners, Doku Recyclers, have done a hotspot mapping of hotspots for plastic pollution in the Bagmati River, the main river in Kathmandu, and they've taken samples of the plastic that can be found there and sorted it. And from a sample of 75 kilos, they found that 38% were plastics, and almost all of those were recyclable plastics. So we see a huge potential there to really drive home the message of waste not necessarily being waste, but a resource that can be used. They've, of course, categorized these plastics that they found in terms of the ease with which they can recycle them as well. We're also, through our partner Creation, conducting workshops to build the capacity of informal waste workers and conducting interviews. We've conducted around 50 or will by the end of the year to find out what their challenges are. Here you can see some of them in the pictures. You see a lot of pictures of children that have been brought to work with their parents because they don't have any other solutions. And informal waste workers that are openly sharing their challenges with us. And we've grouped them into 3 main categories. It's health, safety, and environment, social discrimination, and wages, mainly. And the gender-specific challenges are that, for example, the women, they earn 2 rupees per kilo that they recycle, whereas men earn a regular monthly wage. And women, of course, they face extra challenges. So that was 3.5 minutes. Thanks for your attention. I thought hearing it straight from the mouth of the people that we're focusing on would be much more interesting than just me telling about it. Some of the major challenges, we have a lot of challenges to solve in the project, but some of the ones that I picked to present are that we have an ambitious plan for capacity building of informal waste workers. And it's a small-scale project, but a lot of our goals are to affect the large-scale issues, such as how to affect increased wages for female informal waste workers, how to ensure a proper workplace for informal waste workers, how to get local government to implement long-term solutions, how to show the effect of our project in a meaningful and impactful way, how to get relevant data at the scale that's most impactful, and how to influence a larger scale municipal plastics mapping. Some of the solutions that we have through our project are that our local partners, Doku Recyclers, together with NGI, will create plastic recycling hubs close to the hotspots that we've identified. And it will be the informal waste workers that we've been interviewing that will run these as a sort of business to earn income on a regular and a long-term basis. We are building capacity through workshops for informal waste workers. We're cooperating with Sasaja. It's the only organization in Nepal for waste workers by waste workers, or informal waste workers, I should say. So they will get a membership there and access to loans and funds for healthcare and a network. We're developing trying to develop technical solutions that will make their work easier as well. You saw in a picture there an example of a baler that will make their capacity for collecting plastics easier, and a lot of them have commented on washing the plastics as well. So while we can't really influence the large-scale issues, we will influence them through small-scale solutions, in particular increasing the skills and opportunities and the capacity of the people so that they have the potential to earn more. And through education and spreading awareness, hopefully we'll create more equality and understanding and acceptance of the issues as well. And the last point, but most importantly, is collaboration with other projects. Today is an example of that, so we're really grateful for this opportunity. We want to work together with the other HMF-funded projects, Waste for Warmth, for example, and Eco Foundation, also based in Nepal. And we have a cooperation with University of Leeds to use this project as a case study for one of their international plastics mapping tools. It's just an example. You can follow us on Instagram. The project has its own account, as well as on the social media and website of the partners involved. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I was wearing the same t-shirt. It's a good t-shirt. So, we're just going to push on. And from NGI, the Norwegian Geotechnical Institute, my dear friend and project manager, Catherine Ekbo.
Thank you very much. So yes, my name is Catherine, and I work at NGI, which many people don't really associate with plastic, but I've been working with these plastic projects since 2018. And today I'm going to speak about one of our projects called SUWASU, which is short for Sustainable and Complete Waste Management Solutions for Rural and Semi-Urban Environments. That's a long one. And here are our partners. It is funded by Hans Miljøfond, and our main partner is Strømme Foundation. And then we also have partner with Human Rights, which is Gard here, and Shipyard Consulting, which is Anna, right over here. And then also Engineers Without Borders, and our local partner called REDS. So, the main goal of this project is basically to look at waste management as a total picture, a full picture. We want to look not only at plastics, even though plastics is sort of the main component, but we want to look at the whole system of waste management. And we want to look at two main areas, which is semi-urban and then rural areas, for where we can look at this system. And we want to base the system on local existing processes and conditions when we are sort of creating a system that's supposed to be working on a local scale. And we have two pilot areas. We have Mali, which is the Strømme Foundation, who is in charge of that. And then we have Uganda, which NGI is leading. So how will we do it? We will look at the three main waste fractions, which is plastic waste, organic waste, and residual waste. The plastic waste is mainly, the process is known as collection and sorting, and then trying to make a resource out of this. It could be products that you sell on a market, or it can be shredded plastic that you sell to a bigger company that takes the process forward. What is very important for us in this project is to use technology that fits the environment that we are in. The technology needs to be fit for purpose, so it has to be locally designed for exactly that environment. And I will come closer into this. We are also working with a biochar project, which looks closely into the organic fraction, where they are looking into turning this into biochar, which helps plant growth in agricultural systems. And then finally, the residual fraction, which we did talk about a bit earlier this morning, about incineration of waste that cannot be recycled or utilized in any way. So here we are looking at how can we take this fraction and utilize it in an environmental friendly way, which is better than the current practice of how to utilize this fraction. And we were talking about burning, and the fact is that yes, we don't want to burn, but today this fraction is burnt. In Uganda, we visited a school, and here they burnt all of their waste in the middle of the school grounds. So the alternative is quite bad. So we are looking at how we can take that practice and just make it more environmental friendly. Oops. So this pilot project that I'm focusing on now is our project in Mityana in Uganda, which is about 1 hour from Kampala. And we want to set up a plastic recycling facility, and our main goal is, like I said, to set up something that is fit for purpose in that local environment. We want to work very closely with the existing practice that is there, and it's important that what we set up is sustainable in the long run, and hopefully also can be upscaled. And to do this, all of the systems, machines that we are creating, we are designing from scratch. We are using existing technology, and then we are making that and making sure that those systems are well adapted to the area that we are working in. And why do we do this? You know, the process is very known. All of the machines are pretty much available to buy from wherever. So why do we spend so much time in this phase of preparations? And it was mentioned here before, we worked a lot in the humanitarian context, and they challenged us a lot on this part, that they thought it was really ridiculous to spend half of the project with technology development when you have a machine that you can buy from wherever. And the answer is quite simple, but the process is very complicated. We've been traveling around in many areas, countries for the past few years, and one thing that we always see is a very shiny, nice plastic shredder that is bought from China or America or anywhere, and it looks very nice, but it's not working. And it's quite normally very small things that is the reason for why it's not working. It can be like a screw, that they cannot change. And the reason is that many of the times the people that are set to operate these machines, they have no idea how they actually work. And when they break, and I say when because they will break, and they will break fast, they have absolutely no idea how to fix it. And if they do, they don't have the parts available. These parts are often not available in their area, or they are very, very expensive. So this is what we want to avoid. So in this project, we are following the normal process of plastic recycling. We are focusing a lot on the collection phase. This is where we are working very closely with the local community and the informal sector that already has a lot of systems in place for this. And then, of course, the sorting phase and the washing phase and the shredding phase to make the plastic more valuable. If you can do all of these things correctly, you will enhance the value of the product that you have. And for us, for the project to be sustainable, it has to be profitable. So that's very, very important for us to make it as profitable as possible. And then there's a final product that you can have, which is either you can make something on the ground, which you sell on a market or wherever it's sellable, or you can sell the shredded product to another company. And the added value is, of course, that you can, if it's in smaller pieces, you can transport much more in every time you do the actual transport. So very quickly, where we are now, we are still working at the design and developing phase. We have already had another project where we have developed a bunch of machines, which were very fit for purpose at that area in Ethiopia, where we worked before. We are taking these machines and then we are redeveloping them for the area that we are in right now. So these machines that you see down there, they were made for an area with no electricity available. Where we are now, we actually do have some electricity, so we are redesigning them so that they can utilize all of the resources that actually are available. To do that, we have done a technical recon. We have looked closely into all of the available tools and equipment that we can use to make sure that the things that we do build are made from locally available resources, so that they can be also maintained locally. We have worked to set up a facility, and that has taken quite some time because we need to build a new facility, which we hoped that we wouldn't have to, but we do. And that is a lot of work with government approvals, price negotiations, and so forth. So we are getting there, but it's taking a bit more time than we hoped. And one of our main challenges now going forward is, of course, the Ebola outbreak in Uganda, which stops us from going there, unfortunately, now. And also what we call Muzungu crisis, which is us being rich white people from Norway, and we get prices that are not really sustainable for our project, or prices that we do want to pay. So we do have to go many extra rounds on price negotiations when we set up things. Yeah, I think that's all I have time for. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Catherine. I think I was wearing the same t-shirt again. So we have two of these quick fires left, and we are just going to keep pushing. I hope you're all noting your questions down. Are you? Are you? Yes, thank you for responding. All right, we're going to push on. Elisabeth from Norconsult, please tell us what you had to say.
Thank you for inviting me here, and thank you to all the other presenters for such interesting presentations, which will be very important for what we aim to do. I am representing Norconsult here, an engineering company or a big advisory company in Norway. I'm a marine biologist myself, but we have a lot of other skills there. We cooperate with SALT, that has already been on the podium here, and the Engineers Without Borders. And we are all entangled in other projects already. But this one is a project proposal. We haven't done this yet, but we think it's a very important thing to do. We are aiming at making a roadmap for waste management in international projects, and with a focus then on low-income countries with poor waste management infrastructure. This project came about. I'm formally employed by Norconsult. I'm also informally in cooperation with a few projects in Zanzibar, where organizations are trying to find good solutions for waste management. We discussed this with SALT and with Engineers Without Borders, and we realized all together, we have all come to this thought about these things together, not separately first, and then we started to talk about it together, that there are so many projects that deals with waste collection from natural environments. They struggle with where the waste should go. They deal with this in many different ways, but maybe they don't really talk to each other. Like those two groups I am in contact with, they don't speak to each other, those two local groups. They all have the same goal. They don't know about each other. We have probably projects, they were presented here that there are several projects for Handelens Miljöfond. They want to collaborate, they want to cooperate, but I don't know how extensive that cooperation is yet. So maybe the funder, like the Handelens Miljöfond or Engineers Without Borders, can have a role here. So then the question, the big question, what is a good waste management project? And it can be, of course, you need to collect the waste somehow, but to make it sustainable, what do you do further? Do you have upscaling or recycling or other ways? So what is the good solution? I need to thank my my friends in Zanzibar, the Kava Training Center. They have given me nice photo shoots. I just have to say what they're doing is quite amazing. They do it very on the ground. It's a school. It's an NGO that runs a school. The students, they collect waste every morning, 5 days a week. They collect waste from the beaches around town. For that, they get money for their school fees. And they also have environmental clubs and learn about upcycling. And their education is in tourism, and they're gonna go out there later on with all this knowledge to be used in their work later on. And it's 50-50 gender equality here, so both female and male, and they all work together. So, but what we're struggling with is then, we see the nice solutions here. So where are we today? When you apply for a project, when these groups want to apply for a project, they start where they are. But how can they get the knowledge, or how can the agencies that they are applying from advise them to collaborate and communicate, so that they start not on the first level, but maybe on the second or third, from the knowledge that others have gained before them. We are still here. We come up with different ideas for sorting and local treatments. And in the roadmap that we want to do, we of course need to look at the different solutions within the different environments that the projects will be set. But of course, we cannot do this just from local knowledge. We also have to get extended external knowledge on how it can be done. How is it done in other areas? We need to look at others who have tested different solutions, what works in what kind of environment or under different conditions, and what doesn't. Because that is also very important to know, to learn from others' failures. So you have all these different ways of doing it. You have upcycling. It's very nice, very beautiful, but it may not be an extensive solution that removes a lot of waste. Recycling, we have talked a lot about recycling today. It takes away a lot of the waste, but there are also limitations to what you can recycle. Then you have the more local solutions that are used today. Burying. It's a lot of burying of waste around the world. Where I have been, they bury it on the beach. You don't see it, but when the waves comes in and brings it out again, and then it flushes back in, and we are picking it up. It's a fantastic continuous process. And then the landfills, which can be really bad, and then you have all the different levels of how a landfill can actually be, or how good it can be, from what we saw in Nepal to probably what they do in Europe in many ways. So the idea is that we need to look into sustainable solutions. But the sustainable solutions, not only environmentally sustainable solutions, but economically sustainable solutions as well. And as we say, we want to start a project that is sustainable, so it will go on by itself. What are the fees that you can charge, for instance, to collect the waste? You can charge a fee. In most places, you can actually charge a fee to do it, but it has to be at the right level. And how much are, for instance, the tourism industry interested in paying to know, to be secured that the waste is going to the right place or treated in the right way, instead of just going for the easiest or cheapest solution, which can be buried at the beach. Then we have nice products and we have necessary products. And we need to, when you develop products in different areas or different places, different, if you have a tourism industry in the area, yeah, you can produce nice products that are nice to have. But if you have no tourist market, you need to look for other products. And most places you actually need to look for products that are needed on a bigger scale. And we need to look into the local infrastructure. We need to look at the policies. Of course, many places have policies, like we have management policies, we have environmental management policies, we have resource management policies that are very nice in many areas. In Zanzibar, they have a nice waste management project policy. It's just no money to implement it. And we need to look into equipment and roads. Do we have the right equipment? Do we have the infrastructure in place so that we can collect the waste and maybe move it to where we can recycle? And do we have the right human resources to deal with this? So that is our roadmap. The whole idea. There was I thought it was no. It was supposed to be some text on this one. Oh. Okay. But what we want to do is to come up with ideas of several good solutions that are environmental and economic sustainable, and do some risk assessments on the way, and that this roadmap or these solutions can be a good guidance for future projects.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's good to see people have a lot to say. Sorry about cutting you off, but we have a lot to go through. So we're going to kick on with the last presentation of this particular segment before we go into the Q&A session. So please welcome Tor Martin from Servicestiftelsen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Tor Martin Halland. I work in Strømme Foundation as desk officer for West Africa, and also working on plastic recycling since we're doing this in West Africa. I would also say that we work a lot with NGI, SUASO, and we have received funding twice from Handel's Miljøfond, which we are very appreciated for. A short introduction to Strømme Foundation for those of you who don't know who we are. We are a rights-based development organization. We are working entirely through local partners. I see somebody's yawning here. What can we do? Do you have a question for me? We have a decentralized structure. All our employees in our offices are national or regional staff. We don't have expats like myself, which are very expensive, working abroad. We have a close collaboration with local and national authorities. We work always with local governments, with regional and communes. We try to support the plans of the governments. We are right-based. We are challenging governments, but we are also working together with governments. We're working in 3 regions, West Africa, East Africa, and Asia. And this Green Jobs program is in West Africa. In West Africa, we work in Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. And the last thing I want to say here is that we work in 3 thematic areas within education, which is our largest portfolio: strengthening civil society and job creation, or creating job opportunities, which is the Green Jobs program.
Sorry.
Oh, you
can try again.
Thank you. Yes. Oh. Oh,
I can.
you can do, if you go to the next slide, then it's fine. Yes. The main component in this program here, it's we are collecting plastic bags. We're using a technology which is developed by a local organization called Yambare, based in Ouagadougou. And we are implementing 2 pilots. We had the first pilot in Sahel, which is 400 kilometers outside Bamako. And then we have a second pilot, which we have started now, which is just outside Bamako. So basically, we are training women in collecting plastic, and we are training youth to process the plastic into school benches. We are collaborating with local partners, national and local authorities. We have 2 local partner organizations. As I mentioned, everything we do is through local partners. On the technical side, we collaborate with NGI and Ingeniører Without Borders. Yeah. It's working. Yeah. So the main steps, what we see here is women savings groups which collect plastic bags. They are paid a certain amount for the collection. They collect and they clean the plastic. The youth, they receive the plastic and they produce the benches. The plastic is heated up and put in forms and put into frames mounted by youth. Sorry, it's only me. If you go to the next one.
Yeah, I'll put
Thank you.
there.
Yeah. I'll just go previous one again. Yeah. And finally, the benches are sold to the schools. Yeah. Okay, then you can go to the next one. So here we see it's very basic technology. To the right, we see a kind of a melting pot. Gas is used to melt the plastic up to a certain heat, and then it's put into forms and cooled down, and then it's mounted and welded together to benches. Yeah. You can. So in 2020, we produced altogether 324 benches, and in 2021, 991. And that's total amount of approximately 30,000 kilos have been collected. Yeah. So here we see an example of a school bench. We have a lot of challenges. I mean, there are a lot of good opportunities and possibilities, but there are also challenges here. One challenge is to clean the plastic, because a lot of the plastic is collected in the countryside where there is a lot of... How much? 5 more minutes, okay. Cleaning the plastic, there's a lot of mud and dirt in the plastic. So, I mean, looking at the volume, there is a lot of kilos of plastic collected, but a lot of that also is dust and sand, etc. Access to plastic. Actually, in the two sites around, a lot of plastic has been cleaned. So the women groups need to go into other locations to start collecting plastic. So we are looking at possible ways of scaling up this. We are working in close collaboration with Ingeniører Without Borders and NGI to look at how we can have a cleaner production process and ventilation. To melt the plastic, it generates fumes and wastes, and the ventilation is something we are working on. Also, the drying of the benches takes a long time. We need to really ensure that the benches have been dried completely before they are taken into use. On the sales and distribution, I mean, we're working. It's a challenge to have a good business model, and I've been listening with great interest also to previous presentators here. We talked about how the importance of developing kind of streams which are sustainable. Future funding model. I mean, we have the funding right now for the pilot project, but we're really working with the partners to find ways of developing this further, because we see there is a very good market, or there is a market, there is possibility for this this concept. And then lastly here, insecurity reducing access to visits. In Mali, we've had two coup d'etat over the last years. It's difficult, you cannot travel wherever you want, so we as visitors from abroad cannot travel everywhere. My colleagues, they can travel everywhere. Our local partners, they are based where the production is, so that is not a problem. But yeah, so that is some of the challenges. Take the next one. Yeah. I think on the steps forward, I think I really appreciate to be here, and I think already during the first breaks, I talked to a lot of people and got some interesting connections, which will continue to explore. Other steps forward to continue with Engineers Without Borders. We have a lot of good collaboration here. We need to improve the sales model and the business plan, and we need to perhaps develop a lighter, scalable model. What we have now is a kind of, I would not say heavy model, but it's something that can be made lighter and more adaptable and easier to put into use other places. Yeah, continue the collaboration with NGI, Engineers Without Borders, and other relevant actors, including HMF, definitely. And also we've been thinking about more advocacy. We see that, I've been working in Rwanda, among other countries, and there you see that, I mean, plastic is completely forbidden to use. And to see what kind of possibilities do we as a civil society organization, what possibilities do we have to, what can we do to work on local legislation where plastic bags are basically prohibited? And it works in some countries, it's really working, but the government really needs to be, they need to have a drive internally, but they also need to be pushed. So, yeah. I think that's what I wanted to say. How much time is left?
47 seconds, man.
Good. Thank you. Thanks to you.
You're not going anywhere. You can come back up here, mate.
Okay, sorry.
So all the presenters from this last session should please enter the stage. So we'll run into this quick, well, yeah, it's going to feel quick anyway. Q&A. So I'm hoping that, first of all, thank you very much. Hey! For some lovely presentations in our second segment. Hang on, I'm just going to check the time. Yeah, alright, cool. We have time. So, who has written down some great questions for this gang? This is the first hand I saw. Tura.
Thank you so much for interesting presentations. I have two questions, if that's okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so the first one is for Holly. I was wondering, in the example you were talking about from Turkey, where the plastic comes from when you work in humanitarian operations like that. And the second question is for Uten. I was wondering why you chose to work with these women groups instead of working with within the existing system, or with people who are, for example, the informal sector or other groups that already have access to plastic waste.
Okay, so that was two questions. I'm going to try and summarize. Correct me when I'm wrong. So the first one was for Holly and the Waste for Warmth project. And the question was the source of the plastic? Like, where does the plastic that you use, where does it come from?
So the benefit of working in Gaziantep is it's Turkey, it's a pretty industrialized country. Gaziantep itself is a very industrial city. And so there's actually a lot of factories that kind of have their focus in each step of the plastic recycling. So there's the people buying it, there's the cleaning factories, which are quite large scale, like we have in Norway. And so we're able to buy from a factory that does the actual shredding and pelletizing of plastic. But it's a good question because we're really spoiled in Turkey. And so taking waste for warmth and say doing that same thing in Syria is a totally different, totally different game.
I can take it.
Okay. If you can repeat the question real quick.
Well, the question from Tora was why are we not working with kind of waste pickers organizations in Mali? But actually, we are doing it. I should have made a better presentation. We are working with, traditionally speaking, we are working with savings groups. That is kind of our approach. A lot of women groups. On the same hand, on the same side, we're also working with waste pickers organizations in San and Bamako. So it's a part of kind of putting these together. And many of the women members in the savings groups are also working as waste pickers informally. So I think the question is really very good, and we are really trying to kind of build on this experience on these groups together. Did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think there was one over here. Was that you, Marlon?
Yeah. Thank you for a really nice presentation. I have a question for Holly and maybe also Niva, because throughout the day we have seen examples of recycled plastic being used as building material, or the mechanic loss, the poly loss. And in virgin plastic, you can, to some extent, control what kind of additives you have in the plastic. You can do that with a recycled plastic. And for people to live in building material used, where you use this recycled plastic, how can you control that it's not toxic or dangerous for people to live in?
Yeah, so, stand real. I'm going to try, repeat your question. When using recycled plastics in applications that are going to be close to people, how do you control the potential toxic effects, etc., of plastics in your process?
Do you want to do that?
For us working with the polyfloss is we have to encapsulate it. We often use virgin plastic to encapsulate it for the panel, but there are other ways if you were working on a structure to trap it against a wall and use gypsum board, but it has to be encapsulated, otherwise it will not be good, and it's more, I think, an issue of the microplastics too, just being loose.
How's that? Yeah.
Since it was partly directed to Niva, just a comment from the Indian context, because there is no control currently in these recycling systems that we are familiar with. There is no control of what type of plastic that is mixed. So a couple of years ago, we went to one of the recycling sites, and they had this pile of plastic from TV screens containing carbonated flame retardants, one of the tops that I was talking about. And we asked them, okay, so why is this pile specifically here? So they said, okay, sometimes people pay more to get these flame retardants because they are hindering them burning. So it has a quality. But when the price is low, we just mix everything together. So currently there is no awareness on that. And there is common requirements now, as we heard from Grid-Arendal, on the Indian government there's like they're pushing to use recycled plastic and certain percentages. So we have a long way to go here too, and definitely there is a big lack of awareness around this issue. So this is going to be a big issue.
Yeah. Is there a question? Which one? Francisco.
I have worked internationally most of my life, and one of the key things for succeeding, as far as I can hear, at least for commercial companies, is to identify the right partner in the country one is going to, at least in the commercial aspects. How critical is to have the right partner here in these issues enterprises, and how do you look for it, or how do you find it, at least in your own experience?
So the question was, how important is your local partner in these kinds of projects? And without looking, I'm going to give the microphone to Catherine.
Yeah, so we've actually had quite a few challenges on that in our previous projects, where our project in Malpadilla, for example, we had a partner that was difficult to communicate with, and it made the project impossible to actually finish. So we unfortunately ended up having to pull out. So the local partner is key. It's the entire project. If you don't have a good local partner, you don't have a project, and that's final. So that process should be a big part of your project, basically. And finding the right one is, it's the mixture of finding someone who is familiar in your subject, but also someone that you can communicate well with, because the communication part is very important. So if you have someone that's, very, very good in their field, but impossible to communicate with, it doesn't really make that better. So it's trying to find that balance, basically.
Yep, and you can also find really good partners, like we have in Uganda, yes, with Reds. So it shows there's a very big span in the success of the project in terms of what kind of partner you find. And there are many stories about this. We can do them after dinner. Did I answer the question? Yeah, good. Cheers. Marianne?
Yes, I can try to shout, so you don't have to repeat. Thank you all for presentations. And Engineers Without Borders were involved with quite a few of you. You touched upon the challenges, and we all know there are a lot of challenges. And I specifically for the projects funded by Norconsult, so I guess it's also a bit of a question to you guys. But so the 2-year lifespan, is it really? It's a bit of a leading question as well. But I mean, what we know is that things take time, and they normally take a lot more time than we think when we sit and plan at our desk tables. But is it even accomplishable in 2 years, starting from scratch, to get something up and running that is actually sustainable? Open for input.
Try and answer.
There we go.
So what's very good about Hans Miljøfond is that they now have more than 2 years. I think they have 3 years, and so in the beginning I think it was 1 year, and now it's 3 years, which is very good. So it kind of depends on what you have in the project to start with. Starting from scratch, what we have experienced is a lot of this baseline investigation takes a long time. So from you start until you actually, put a shovel in the ground or even get anything produced, you spend most of your time discussing with local government, negotiating prices, trying to figure out how do we actually set up something that can fit in this local environment. So in that sense, it is you have to have very much luck if you're going to actually get something that's perfectly producing whatever it is that you were setting out to do after 2 or even 3 years. And then you also have these, like for example, now we have the Ebola issue that will delay things. But what you can do is you can get very, very far, and then you can set up what we are trying to do is set up pilot systems. So you set up smaller systems to, like a proof of concept, which can show that what you want to do actually can work. And then once you have done that, you can hopefully get more funding to expand it and to get it to be a more long-term sustainable project.
It is now 12:30 on the dot. This has never happened to me before. But lunch is ready. Please keep your questions going through lunch. Sorry?
Yeah, can I just mention before lunch that we have two
Oh yeah, true.
items here that was forgotten from the breakfast seminar. So if someone knows who owns this, you can come and pick it up. Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna go start bidding at 100. I forgot. Yeah, yeah, someone lost that. Yeah.
She's gone.
She's gone. It's ours. All right, we are gonna. So perfect. We're gonna break for lunch. It's just outside here, and you probably remember your own dietary restrictions, or I don't know what you want to call it, but it's labeled outside. Food. Eat it. So we're going to break for lunch, and then I'm going to start harassing you to get you back in here when it is time. So I'm going to get out of the way, and then after lunch we are going to hear a bit more in depth about from Precious Plastic, to whom we are quite familiar with from many of our projects, and then we're moving on to the case study. So enjoy lunch. How was lunch? Good. Yeah, I agree. So now we're gonna kick off the last bit of the program for today before dinner. We are gonna have a workshop where you're all gonna be divided into groups at very random. And we're going to give you a task to solve within a certain amount of time. And we're going to look at the solutions that you come up with, which is going to be very interesting for us. Remembering whatever you've heard or learned today. But before we get to that, we are very lucky to have with us one of the OGs, one of the longest running members of the central part of the precious plastic community. Some of you know these guys from before. You heard a little bit about them during the breakfast meeting, and they are those who have given us the means to make little recycling machines around the world. So we're very lucky to have with us Jan here, who's going to give us another rundown of the machinery that Precious Plastic have, and then he's going to show you a little video with us wearing the same t-shirts. All right, take it away, Jan.
Hi everyone, or hi again. So, yeah, God grant me with 20 minutes talking, but because I'm a bit lazy, I'm gonna talk for only 10 minutes and then show you another 10-minute video. So, yeah. So this morning I made you like a presentation of what we do, Precious Plastic in general, and as you can see, we have like different aspects from our community, our online platforms, our open source hardware, etc. So I will start by a presentation a bit more in depth about the hardware we developed and what you can do with it, how it looks like, etc., etc. And then the video will be more like a case where we install it to actually work with NGI, Innovation Norway, etc. That was a project in Algeria. So yeah, starting with the hardware here. So yeah, the machines that we have, let's say 2 series, one that we call small scale, and another one that we call semi-industrial. I would say it's kind of a big word for it, but just bigger machine. And then I will show you a little bit more about the new development we're working on at the moment, and yeah, a quick talk about open source in general, as it's quite something that brings questions. So small scale, this is the first machine that have been developed by Precious Plastic. This is a set of like 4 machines. On the left, you have a shredder, so that breaking apart the plastic waste into flakes, and then you can melt it into different machines, like a small extruder, an injection machine, and a compression oven. And the one that you see on the picture is really the first one that we developed, and you find these drawings online in what we call the download kit, and they are really designed to be, let's say, as simple to build, and they are not necessarily to be exactly replicated, but more to be an inspiration of like what you can do with it, and then you need to adapt to your local needs, where you build them, etc., etc. And in the machines, we decided to continue to develop to make it a bit more solid and exportable for people that would like to make a business of building machines. We actually developed further the shredders and the injection machine into this one that is like a, you can see like a very similar one. The shredding system is still the same, but we just used the CE reglementation. So, you know, like it's about safety about machines. This machine before were just built with just the simplest mind possible and not necessarily safety in mind. But even if CE doesn't apply everywhere in the world, it's still a good guideline for making a machine safe, and that's generally what you want. So we incorporate this, some protection around, some like proper way to wire the machine, some protection so this is a shredder, so you will stop if you try to put your hand in it, or this kind of stuff. So this small shredder is able to shred up to 15 kilo an hour. So it's, if you talk to a recycler, I would say it's ridiculous, but still useful for some cases, and it will cost between 900 and 1400 depending where you build it. And you can run either on single phase or 3-phase power. And this is what you get out of it, small flakes of various colors if you do the sorting properly. Then we have the injection machine. This is completely hand operated, and this can melt the plastic and push it into a mold that you can create objects that will do up to 120, 150 grams in total. And this runs purely on single phase as well, so you could with an energy that will be very similar to a boiler, so you could even run it to your house if you want, apart from the fumes, of course. And this is an example of a mold that you can CNC in aluminium, but you could also laser cut it. Some people do it with 3D printing molds in resin, etc., and you can create a series of small objects. So here a carabiner, which is a good handover product for different people to start talking about recycling. And this mold is also open source. And then what we call the semi-industrial, so a set of like 3 machines that we developed in 2020. So that's the latest machine we developed, and we decided to go a little bit bigger so people could start thinking of making a business. They're a bit more productive. So you still have a shredder, just a bigger one, also an extruder, just a bigger one, and a sheet press. That is a new machines that we developed there because a lot of people were demanding it. So the shredder, still the same concept. This one goes up to 50 kilogram per hour. So still a very small output, but that you can start running a business of like a small recycling scale. And it will cost between 2,000, 3,000 depending on where you run it. And all these machines, unfortunately, they need to run on 3-phase power. So you also need to be in a more, let's say not industrial, but at least like a working area. Nothing new here, it's just a shredder, so you put plastic waste and you get flakes. Then we have an extruder, so we decided to purely focus on the bigger one, as our smaller one was basically costing the same and then with less output. With this machine you can extrude up to 20 kilo an hour, and this is more used for small scale construction material, so like more like beams, bricks, that you can use for making construction, fence, bench, etc. Also running on 3-phase. And this is an example of the beams that we can create, so you can have different section, different color, and people use it either to make benches, chairs, furniture, but we also see cases where people use it to make fence because wood is difficult to access in the area, and it's actually easier to use plastic for now. And finally we have the sheet press, which is actually not one machine but 3 machines together, It's also completely hand operated. The plastic is just heated up by two plates. So let's imagine a huge panini press. 1.5 or 1.5 meter panini press, but still one. And you will slowly press the plastic together as soon as it melts. And once it's melted, you just move it to another machine when it can cool down. And with this, you can create 1.2 by 1.2 meter sheets, which is half the standards generally for plywood, etc. And you can produce, between 5 and 8 sheets per day, so you can start running it. But definitely this machine needs a bigger space, bigger electricity, etc. And this is the example of like sheets that we are making. New development that we are currently making that will happen in, let's say, the next 6 months. We're developing a new shredder. So this is an interesting collaboration because we work with a proper recycling company or recycling machines company that is called Weimar. It's a German shredding company. They build massive shredders for all kind of application. And they contacted us saying like, hey, we're actually good at shreddings, and then we want to develop a new machine for you. So they came to us and say, hey, we think this is a great improvement. So we work with them, giving them, the kind of frame for the development, so it can be built everywhere in the world, the cheapest possible, the more replaceable, and then design this machine. So the picture that you see is the second version. They are currently working on the third one, and by early next year, I would say, we will be able to replace our current shredder by a new one designed by proper engineering factory. And another one I was very excited to talk about is a solar container. So you could also see the picture before. A big problem that we generally have is to find a place that has the proper electricity system and enough space that you have the right to put it. And we are currently developing a container that will be solar powered up to 10 kilowatt, as most of our machines are under it. So we could run the place without having to find a proper place to run the machines, a proper electricity plugging, so you could dispatch this container very quickly in complete remote area. So this one, we're gonna start it next year, and we're gonna deploy the first container in Nigeria, probably in autumn 2023, and then it's gonna be open source, a few months after that, once you get the feedback. And finally, talking about open source, as we say, everything we do is open source. That means all our drawings, they are accessible for free, they are free to replicate and to change and to adapt, etc. to your need. People say like, it's a bit weird to do that if you also want to sustain yourself, but our initial idea was to just deliver a solution to people that they can use and replicate. And it's actually worked well. People adapt these machines very well. That was the most helpful one for the. Sorry, I lost my point. Oh yeah, no, I know. I had also some questions about sustainability of the company, how we do to continue this development, etc. How the money is coming from, and we actually build also workspaces. We install them, and then of course we get paid for this job, and then we use this profit that we generate from the installation jobs to continue the open source development. And through open source, you can also see it as a marketing tool, because you are the one open sourcing it, you are the first one doing it, and then people know you because you're just the one talking about it. So we didn't do it for that, but looking at it afterwards, it's actually also a great marketing tool that will encourage a lot of people to do it, just because it helps a lot of people talking about you, which is useful. So I hope I didn't take too long, and maybe I could show you like a video of a project where we actually install the machine in a specific environment.
When you think of going to the desert, you picture sand, lots of it. You picture cactuses and camels, occasionally a dead tree. What you probably don't expect is trash, and lots of it. Want to find out why waste is being dumped and burned in the Sahara Desert? How a bunch of goofballs, like ourselves, turn this empty space into a plastic recycling facility? How we make this, out of this, and how we empower the local people to do so, well, stick around for this one. We are here in the Sahara Desert, near a town called Tindouf. Why? Good question. Well, some pretty intense stuff has been going on here since 1973. Stuff you've probably never heard about. At least, we didn't. Not until we answered the United Nations call for helping with the plastic waste problem in the area. You should definitely read into what's going on here. But long story short, over 100,000 people live in refugee camps in the middle of freaking sand, thousands of miles of sand in all directions. With here and there some camels. We were right about that. Since it's in the middle of the desert, the refugees, which are called Sahari, rely almost completely on humanitarian aid to get their drinking water, food, building materials, and clothes. This comes with a lot of waste. And it's not like there's a garbage truck just going around picking up waste containers. Well, actually there is.
Today we're following the trucks in the camps, how they pick up the waste.
But after the waste is picked up in the camps, it's driven off into the Sahara Desert, dumped and burned. Sounds rough, but what else is there to do?
Not ideal. And of course it can't stay here even when it burns. I don't know. The waste pickers here, they are proud of their job, that's a good thing, but they also see as a solution, they see just more collections, but actually they could transform it into stuff, so that's really something where there can be a lot of work done that they actually see it's valuable and they can do something out of it. Yeah, see, it's showing the value.
So what do we mean by that? How could this waste be of any value?
So we're in Algeria, and we're in a refugee camp in Algeria. Okay, one more. We're in a refugee camp in Algeria, and we're setting up this plastic recycling workspace with precious plastic. Okay, that's good, I think.
So yeah, here will be the two sorting stations. A storage area will be in between the washing and the shredder.
We just want to give you an introduction of what precious plastic
After
is.
a long week of setting up the workspace, we were ready to start teaching and working with the locals, recycling plastic into new products.
Now, with all these machines, you can create a lot of things with plastic.
Meet Salamu, born and raised in one of the refugee camps.
الانطلاقة والله ندور رابوني ديك الساعة يعني شان السمارة ديركت يعني لا السمارة ما حرقناش الوالد ما يعني مستشفى تأثير على المستقبل يعني تشين شوي انك تطمح لياسر بما انك تقدر تعيش يعني تقدر توعى تصير وحدك يعني تربي راسك وحدك مثلا عندك شي ما جابوا لك راسك يعني ما خالق حد يعني ما خالق سند ثاني يدي يساندك في هذا المصنع طريقة سياحة هذا المصنع تقد يعني تشتغل فيه بينما يخلق حل في القضية يخلق الاستغلال يخلق أي شيء النفايات موجودة يعني احنا كل نهار نصرف النفايات كل نهار تلقى عندنا نفايات هذا المصنع يقدر يساعد المخيمات بطريقة بالنسبة اللي كان بينقالوا البلاستيك خاصة عند الحاويات خاصة باش دي طريقة هذا المصنع يعني أكيد يعني معمولان اللي يساعد في يعني هذيك هي تقريبا ذاك هو الحافز الرسمي أصلا الحافز الرسمي هو أنك تساعد الناس باش ما يضرها البلاستيك.
Now you know why we do this. Maybe it's time to show you how we do this. Remember that truck going around? Well, instead of dumping the waste here, you can dump it here.
This could be the end.
The team then sorts the plastic into types of plastic. Then they do some more sorting, and then they throw it into this scary looking thing which compresses it into a bale, which you can sell for roughly 10 euros. Or, after sorting, they shred the plastic into tiny pieces that are then easier to store and work with. They wash it, they dry it, they measure it, they throw it into this hopper, and then this extrusion machine spits out some sort of hot plastic sausage from which they can make all sorts of creations. Or, after sorting, shredding, washing, drying, and weighing, they throw the shredded plastic on a big metal sheet. Carefully, they lay it out into whatever pattern and color their creativity can come up with. They load it into the sheet press machine, wait for 45 minutes, and out comes a true piece of art. And if that wasn't cool enough, they actually use these beautiful looking sheets to make furniture.
We found this school bench in a school, and it was broken, and now we're replacing the wood that was also broken by like plastic sheets and plastic beads.
Really, it's just one example of the endless possibilities from which they can now recycle plastic waste into new products.
In this workspace, we will recycle 3 main types of plastic that are called HDPE.
Realistically, it will take time for Salamu, his family, and all the other refugees to be able to go back to their homes. While we can't do much to speed that up, we can help them leave as little traces and waste behind in the desert from this decades-long humanitarian crisis. Now Salamu and his friends know how to turn waste into value. They have all the machines and knowledge to do it. Making sure there's a circular economy around plastic in their refugee camp, and keeping waste out of the desert. Make sure to support them and follow their progress. Links in the description below. And if you too want to start recycling plastic, check out preciousplastic.com and learn how to get started.
Now, let's do the case thing. Thank you very much, Alan. So hopefully, through the day, you've had some, you've learned some new stuff, and maybe you've picked up a bit of inspiration through your countless cups of coffee and all of the new insights on the field. So we're going to present you with a case to solve.